Hello and welcome on the Barricades. This is a podcast produced by Eastern European journalists and academics. I am your host, Maria Cernat, an academic based in Bucharest, and with me, as usual, the Bulgarian-born Polish journalist Boyan Stanislavski. Thank you for being here with me.
All right, coming to you from Warsaw, Poland. Hello.
Hi, so we discussed Romania and we discussed how the conflict in Middle East was reflected in some bizarre incidents where the Romanian police asked Palestinians and pro-Palestinian Romanians to go and have a friendly chat. Tell me more, Boyan, about the protests in Poland. How is the Middle East conflict affecting your society? How are people reacting? And tell me more a little bit about the reaction of the Israeli ambassador, because from what I gather, it was quite interesting.
Right. So first of all, I want to say that the Israeli or the Middle Eastern conflict does not really affect the public life in Poland, or at least not much. There are certain incidents, but in general, we are preoccupied now after the elections that took place a couple of weeks ago. We're busy restoring our democracy, rule of law and so on and so forth, which is a very, I would say, comical process. Comical, but also pretty scary in certain instances process in and out of itself. So we're very busy with that at the moment. And our new speaker of the parliament, of the lower but more important really, chamber of the Polish parliament called Sejm, the speaker of that institution, freshly elected, has just announced that he's going to be running a podcast. So we have a competition. I suppose that this is one of these moves that are supposed to probably create the impression that now we have fixed all the problems and we just need to overcome the alienation between the citizens and, I don't know, the lower chamber of the Polish parliament, and then everything's going to start thriving. So that's of course ridiculous. Just as many other things occurring in Poland at the moment in this process, a very convoluted one of restoring "quote unquote" democracy and civic liberties and such. So there is really very little room for Israel, Palestine, or for anything, even for Ukraine, quite honestly, to interfere with our domestic political matters. Now, one thing that I could mention, because we have indeed spoken about the reactions in Romania vis-a-vis the conflict, vis-a-vis the war in Gaza, southern Israel. And fact of the matter is that your police seems to be going out of your way. I don't understand. I can't quite comprehend what have they had in their heads when they decided to call in for what you referred to as friendly chat at a police station. I could think of a few other places where you can have a friendly chat rather than a police station. So your police called in people to kind of, not interrogate them, but to have this friendly chat, again, quote unquote. And that makes no sense. I mean, it's ridiculous. It doesn't even intimidate anyone if that was their plan. And here they were not trying to intimidate any people. What the mayor of Warsaw is attempting is to ban the second in a row demonstration in favor of free Palestine, or against this, genocidal manic rage that's orchestrated by the Israeli army at the moment. And he issued an official ban. This demonstration is about to happen. It's the 17th of November today, Friday, I think in 2 days. Yeah, on Sunday, or maybe tomorrow. Sorry, this weekend. So either tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, there is this pro-Palestinian, let's call it that way, demonstration scheduled to take place. But the mayor of Warsaw, a very liberal guy, all in favor of rule of law and civic society and so on and so forth, he's trying to ban that. But then, from what I gather, the court, because you can always appeal such a decision to a court, which is the kind of higher instance, the first instance of justice, institutional justice, basically. And the administrative court, from what I gather, has cancelled this ban. I mean, you really, I think it's a very strange strategy, because obviously they are scared of the reactions of the United States and Israel, or of the respective embassies of those states, and this is why they are going out of their way to sort of try and prevent this from happening. But I think they've chosen the worst possible strategy, because the best possible strategy would be to just let those 500 people, 1,000 people, I don't know how many are going to gather, but not much, all right? No, not many. So they're going to go there, they're going to shout for like half an hour. The weather is really cold, it's Poland, it's like the beginning of winter. They're going to shout Free Palestine for like half an hour, 45 minutes or something like that. I've been to such demonstrations for I don't know how many times, okay, like maybe 1,000 times since I sort of became politically conscious and active and so on. And those demonstrations don't change anything, and this one would not have changed anything just as well. So they could have let it go, and that would be it. But no, they had to go, as I said, out of their way, and they are trying to ban this in order to prove to the institution, well, not really institutions, but to the to the powerful centers that, or to the to what they refer to, or to what they perceive as powerful centers, like Israel and Washington. They have to prove that no, we're with you and we're taking precautions in order not to disturb your peace of mind, especially your ambassadors, your council, and I think this is a very, very bad strategy, because you can effectively, in certain cases, repress a demonstration to the extent that it doesn't happen, but it's really difficult to ban a demonstration. I mean, according to the Polish law, and according to the law of most European countries, or most Western countries, if you like, you really need to prove that this demonstration is going to be organized under slogans that are against the law, or that pose some kind of actual threat, which you'd have to prove to national security or something like that. And of course this doesn't. I mean, 500 people, 1,000 people, 1,500 people in the center of Warsaw shouting for Free Palestine, something that's been happening every year, every 2 years, or something like that on a cyclical basis in Poland ever since I can remember. Obviously it doesn't breach the law, obviously it doesn't support any kind of tendencies, terroristic tendencies, if you like, that would be any kind of that would pose any sort of threat to anything even remotely close to national security. So that's complete nonsense. And what they're doing is they are, of course, trying to use this as to throw some black PR on this demonstration, on the organizers. But in the final aftermath, what is happening in the public sphere is that more and more people are actually interested in it. Now, they might not necessarily join the demonstration, but they're interested in it. So what is happening is they're achieving the opposite effect. And by the way, I think you mentioned the reaction of the Israeli ambassador. That was about the previous demonstration that took place at the end of October. I think it is 21st or 22nd of October. And there was, again, it wasn't a major, big demonstration. It was just a couple of hundred people, maybe a little bit over 1,000. At the time, I wasn't in Poland, so I don't have, I can't give you any kind of eyewitness account. And maybe tomorrow I will be able to go there, although I'm going to be alone this weekend with my children, so we'll have to see how it goes. But the previous demonstration, from what I gather, from everything that I've seen in the media and from information that I've collected from my friends and comrades, they said that there was one unfortunate accident, really unfortunate, in the center of which there was this Norwegian student. I cannot remember her name at the moment. She was carrying a banner, a poster really, not even a banner, that was just a piece of cardboard. And there was this slogan that we have to clean, let's keep the world clean, or something like that. If you Google out, demonstration Warsaw, pro-Palestine, October 2023, you will immediately get that, because all the media, of course, have been writing about this. And this was used. And also on this poster, there was like some kind of silhouette of a man throwing out David Starr into a bin, so very, I would say, inappropriate, okay, to say the least, kind of combination of words and graphics and design and everything. And of course, immediately she was spotted. This was one person, okay, I mean, one person, one poster, not necessarily very big, but it attracted immediately the attention of all the media, and people were approaching her, journalists were approaching her, asking what does she mean. It turned out that she's not Polish. Then subsequently it was established that she's a Norwegian student that was in Poland. That's been in Poland for quite some time now on some kind of student exchange program, and she explained, that she doesn't mean anything anti-Semitic, that she's just saying that the words on her poster, they refer to the Israeli government, but nonetheless, I accept this explanation, but it was very, very unfortunate, and especially in Poland, where anti-Semitism has always been a problem, like in many Eastern European countries, and it was stupid, and I think it was stupid on the part of the organizers to actually accept this. Like they could have easily approached her and asked her to take this nonsense down, and that that doesn't mean that the organization the march wouldn't have been attacked. It would have been attacked, but there wouldn't be this kind of blatant, obvious reason. And of course, to say that this was an anti-Semitic march against Jews or against Israel, that makes no sense whatsoever. Obviously, that was one person, one poster. That's it. It reminds me of this situation with. I can't remember when was it. During the pandemic, there was this demonstration of Canadian truckers. I think they called it the Freedom Convoy or something like that. And you can have all kinds of views about this, the statements and the postulates that this Freedom Convoy sort of offered. But then, all the media, it was like a couple of thousand people, couple of thousand trucks, couple of thousand of it was a massive demonstration, massive event. And then they found one guy carrying some swastikas or some Nazi insignia or something like that. And of course, everything was spinned around this, that as if that was some kind of Third Reich, pro-Third Reich demonstration or something like that. So again, we had the same sort of socio-techniques, and everyone with a pinch of brain in their mind and kind of interested in public affairs can easily see through that. But nonetheless, it was used, and of course, the Israeli ambassador he was infuriated about how was this possible and why was it allowed? And I don't quite understand. What do you mean? Why was it allowed? Like, how is the Polish police? How are the Polish authorities or Warsaw authorities of Warsaw in that case, because it was in the capital city of Poland? How are they supposed to see through what people think, and what are they going to carry to the demonstration or something like that? As I said, it was a mistake on the part of the organizers to have accepted that or not to be vigilant enough. But what do you mean how it was allowed? Like, tomorrow I can call a demonstration and 3 people can come with inappropriate, slogans on some kind of banners or posters or something. You cannot. What do you mean? How is it allowed? Well, it's allowed. Like, people can write whatever they want, and then subsequently they can be faced with certain consequences of what they write and what they propose in public. But this is it. Like, you cannot just somehow prevent it in some kind of metaphysical way to figure out what people are going. So I think this was ridiculous. Second. To also call the entire demonstration because of this a blatant act of anti-Semitism is also very incorrect. But there is something, again, I told you about the strategy of the Warsaw mayor, and I have the feeling that the Israeli ambassador in Poland, he's adopted a similar strategy. Instead of letting the steam off, and that would take a couple of demonstrations, a couple of hundred, couple of thousand posts on social media. He decided he has to kind of act against the Polish authorities that were from day one of this conflict, that is from October 7, were in full support of Israel. And, I think it's disputable that they were in full support of Israel from a point of view of of a relatively large portion of the Polish public opinion. And and the Polish authorities have gone out of their way to make sure that, Israel and the US are satisfied with their reaction. They were on major buildings in all major cities. We've seen the Israeli flag, and it was either screened like as lights, or in other ways, all kinds of. Yeah, okay, so it was everywhere and projected, exactly, and all politicians, all important people, all opinion leaders, if you like, and so on and so forth. Everybody spoke in favor of Israel. But then at one point, there was this meeting that, from what I gathered, was scheduled or has been scheduled quite some time ago between the Polish foreign minister between the Polish foreign minister and some ambassadors of some of the Arab states. And then, the minister writes about it, okay, on this platform, former Twitter, what is it? X, it's now called X. And he writes there a short post about, I met with this and that, and, the ambassadors of Arab countries, we've discussed this and that. And then you get the Israeli ambassador to Poland lecturing the Polish foreign minister and telling him that he hopes that he had also taken up with those ambassadors of Arab countries, he had also taken up the need to condemn Hamas. And then he didn't even write Hamas, but he wrote hashtag Nazi Hamas or Hamas Nazi, something like that. Okay. And he basically demanded in a very arrogant manner from the Polish foreign minister to do things, to discuss with, people, with other ambassadors of other countries where, Poland, at least theoretically, has the authority to take sovereign decisions, like whether they discuss and what do they discuss with whom. And the foreign minister is the representative of the executive branch. He can really do anything he wants with regard to the Polish foreign ministry. And then you get this Israeli ambassador publicly lecturing him in a very humiliating and arrogant manner what is he expected to do when he meets with other ambassadors, as if the Israeli ambassador owns the Polish foreign ministry or something like that. And again, I kind of, okay, people are at war, people lose their minds then, people lose control of their emotions, I get it, but these are diplomats, these are not regular people, this is not your average Joe, okay, walking the streets of Tel Aviv or other Israeli city, and then, being enraged and so on and so forth. I mean, I can understand really everything, okay? We've had war going on for more than 18 months now, right across the border here. And I've spoken to many Ukrainians, to many, people that have really suffered from that war. And I understand what kind of emotions are raging, okay, in their hearts and minds. But this, again, is an ambassador. How can what were you trying to achieve? What kind of strategy is this?
Yes.
You're a diplomat. You're supposed to be strategic. You're supposed to strategize every public statement that you make. And this, he achieved the effect, an effect exactly opposite to the one I supposedly desired, okay? Because he probably wanted to make sure that everybody support Israel even more. But now the situation is that there's an increasing amount of people within the Polish public that don't support Israel precisely because of such arrogant moves. And I think this is really very, very, ignorant on the part of the Israeli authorities to allow this. We've had all kinds of very strange statements. We've already had this guy from I think he used to be the minister of not of culture, but of something of national heritage or whatever the ministry is called. I didn't even know that they had such a ministry in Israel, who was demanding that they drop a nuclear bomb on Gaza or something like that. Which is a crazy statement, like in and out of itself. Like, let alone ethics aside, I'm just trying to say that calling from Tel Aviv to drop a nuclear weapon on somewhere in Gaza is like as if I'm in Warsaw and I'm calling for bombing another city on Polish territory, which is 200 kilometers away, maybe or less than that, 150 kilometers away. I mean, what kind of thing is going on in your brain?
Yes, I would like to briefly comment on that. Mm-hmm. Everything you said so far, shows me, just from a media perspective, I don't pretend to be a specialist in the Middle East conflict. I don't pretend to be a specialist in the history of this conflict. But what I see from a media theorist point of view, for somebody that look at the media with a critical eye for the past 2 decades, is very shocking in the sense that it was Edward Bernays. It was him that invented the profession of public relations, and it was the Americans and the Israelis that took it to a very high level of sophistication and complexity. Such a level that jokes were made in the sense that a Russian traveled with an American to the United States, and the Russian said, well, I'm going to the United States because I want to study propaganda techniques in your country. And the American said, what propaganda? And the Russian said, exactly. So there were jokes, and they are well known for developing, very, very sophisticated persuasion techniques, being very, very savvy in terms of the media, the public relations, the way that certain audiences might react to certain, messages. So for me, it is so shocking to see how the PR manuals are just thrown out the window and people behaving like immature teenagers. I don't know what this is, whether this is incompetence, whether Bibi Netanyahu was
Maybe
so
desperation.
obsessed with staying in power that he surrounded himself with very incompetent people. That might be one part, or maybe it was the fact that, like, the Russians weren't challenged to win elections and they lost completely. They're out of touch, with the public, with manipulating the public through very delicate means, to
In the West.
strategize PR in the West and all the rest. And even in their countries, if you think about it, because they have a very primitive way of conducting propaganda, even though it might be efficient, they are not very subtle in what they're doing. So it might be that these people are incompetent, or maybe they got so accustomed to not being challenged that thing worked against them, and they don't realize that the world has changed. And they have to adapt to the new realities, just like the PR manual teaches us. You have to see who's your audience, what the channels are best to be used if you want to be efficient in your communication. I mean, they have to go back to the school they invented. They have to go back to the textbooks that they themselves wrote. This is my opinion, because if they want to achieve something, this is not the way to go. It is clear. This is not the way to go.
I think that
police, or being in a line with the police, getting people to have friendly conversations down the police station, and then lecturing ministers and politicians
on social media, on social
media. I mean, they could have phoned, they could have expressed, in a very elaborate and very diplomatic language their concern, not just
they're losing
like
it. They're losing it. Absolutely.
Teenager, oh, you went to that party with those guys that I don't like. It's just like teenagers behaving like this is just so weird.
Yeah, but on top of everything, they were in the same party all the time, supporting the guys that the Israeli ambassador likes. So he was, even despite the fact that the circumstances were very favorable from his point of view, or at least that's how I see it, then he was still unhappy. So, I really feel that they are losing it. And it might be desperation. It might be something else. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not going to pretend I really understand what's going on in their heads. But this is ridiculous. But what you said about certain powers or certain centers of power and the people there not being used to people telling them no, I have the feeling that it actually, there is a... I can relate to it in a certain way. That is, the Polish experience of the past 8 years is pretty similar from that point of view, because the chairman of the state, Jarosław Kaczyński, who's now not going to be the chairman of the state anymore, and he's probably not going to die as the king of Poland, and so on and so forth, like his dreams are crumbling. But the thing is that one of the reasons why they lost, and maybe we're going to, at one point, record, a kind of summation of what's been going on in Poland over the past 8 years and why did the law and justice lose. But one of the reasons, and I find it to be a very fundamental, one of the 3-4 fundamental reasons, is that there has never been any kind of criticism, well, not so much allowed, because it was allowed, but it was never close to the chairman, in a sense that everybody was kind of figuring out very early on that in order to make a career, a political career, a career in the public administration, in politics, in media, you have to make the chairman happy. Not that you have to, make sure that he knows how things really are, but you got to make him happy. When he is happy, then, he can make you happy too. And many people have made, careers. That's true. But now, this was just for a time, and it's the best probably way to kind of get your political camp, the leaders of your political camp, to believe their own propaganda, because this is how it happens. I mean, there's got to be a kind of mutual exchange of emotions, information, and everything. So they were kind of trying to create this magical world where everybody can be happy and can tap each other on the arm. Everything is great, and in the final aftermath, they went against everyone. And despite the fact that they won the elections, they were not able to. They are not able to rule because they went against everyone. They are not able to tolerate anything that they don't control. That's so. Yeah.
This is very, very good analysis, and maybe it relates to certain power structures in Israel. Who knows? I'm not an expert. I don't want to even go there. So let's talk now about something funny, but at the same thing tragic. We discussed time and again, also to the disappointment to some of our close friends, even about the decaying state of the left that is moving away from a truly progressive project that would aim to change the material conditions of the society and to base itself in real things like wages, like work, like changing the conditions for the vast majority of workers, and moving from that to something extremely bizarre that you very, very cleverly labeled as the idealist counter-revolution. I mean, transforming the left into some sort of individual project where identity is the most important thing and your own self is the most important thing. And I told the viewers, or if I didn't tell them, I tell them now, that these ideas came from a failed revolution of the 68, when the state power proved to be far more powerful for the hippies and everybody that wanted to have a revolution in the 60s in the United States. And then they said to themselves, we cannot go together against the power of the state, but we can change ourselves. And from this political ideal, an individual ideal was born. The idea that there is a policeman inside of you, that society put very bad things inside of you. And if you want to change and build a better society, the way to go about it is to change yourself and to remove any kind of social barrier, regulation, rule that the education put in you. Like somehow you are an onion and there is something very, very, authentic in the middle of it, and you have to peel off the onion to get to that authentic self, which in and out of itself is quite idealistic if you think about it, because this is not what the leftists are claiming. The leftists are claiming that we are processes and we are the result of the interaction of, society's forces, economic forces, and all the rest. And as a result, we have a very, very bizarre and interesting story happening in the theater in Warsaw, where you had a very good theater director that was appointed the head of the drama theater in Warsaw, and it all went mad. It's Monika Strzępka. I hope I'm little difficult.
Almost there.
Almost there. So tell us more about what happened, because I want the viewer to grasp not only that we have wokeism, but that we have a poor copy, a cheap copy of wokeism in Eastern Europe.
Exactly. So first of all, I want to agree with you that there is this ideological problem with the left globally, or at least in the collective West, as the Russians like to refer to our regions. That is the old West plus the new satellite states like ours, Poland, Romania, and the former Eastern Bloc in general. There is this ideological problem, and I think the question of wokeism is really a symptom of that. It's not really the cause, because many people, are kind of referring to it as the kind of the cancer that's eating us. And I think, you can refer to it like as a cancer if you like. I don't think medical terms are really helpful in politics, but it's a symptom of where we have been going for a long time. And the question of isolation, alienation, and so on and so forth. This is, of course, very important. But I think what is the fundamental problem that caused all the misunderstandings, wokeism being one of them, which I dislike. I find it to be a profoundly reactionary idea, and I can argue that statement. But the problem is that obviously the two major projects of the international left, that is the Western Social Democratic Project and the Soviet Eastern, if you like, Soviet model, they failed. Well, failed in a sense that they brought people a lot of things, and they did develop societies and in a very and kind of provided the civilizational upgrade to their respective societies, countries, states, and so on and so forth. But they stopped functioning at one point, and there are reasons for this dysfunction that eventually led to the disintegration of those models, and no one has really investigated it. They, the left internationally thought like, okay, well, now we have to do something. I don't know, we have to turn our attention somewhere else. And, since there is this saying, if you don't know where you're going, you're always going the wrong way. And we did go the wrong way, obviously. And now we're in this trap of 77 genders and, kind of self-centeredness, which is really ridiculous beyond any kind of, moral and ethical acceptance, I would say. So there are those problems. But the worst part about it is that this ideology, this new concept, this new set of ideas, which we refer to as wokeism, is something that's destroying even the good people, And this is the saddest part of that story, because this woman, Monika Strzępka, with a kind of difficult second surname to pronounce. Strzępka, yes. So Monika Strzępka, she was, she used to be someone. I mean, she's someone I used to admire. I'm not a theater expert, my girlfriend is a dramaturgist. She can tell you much more about it. But I kind of, I'm familiar with art in general, and I can see when there is art with political messages that it's trying to convey that I like. I can sense the kind of interesting counterculture elements in certain, displays of culture. And she was one of the most important, most profound, and most interesting authors of such instances of counterculture in the Polish artistic world, especially in the world of theater. She would do things like Brecht used to do back in the day, right? And of course, with a sense of proportion. I mean, she was doing it here in Poland, so obviously the scale was different, and she's not worldwide famous. But she really. She's coming, from a small town, so she went through a very difficult way to sort of emancipate herself, to be able to translate her own experience and the knowledge, including political knowledge she acquired, into something that can be put on stage, and can be put on stage in a manner that is interesting for people like myself, who are interested in this alternative voices, but also would not turn off people who are part of the kind of the very classical elitist theater that they're looking for. So she was really, I think, a genius in that way. And the problem with her is that the problem with wokeism really is that once a person like that with a career gets into this crowd, or gets surrounded by this crowd of activists, civil society organizations, progressive, super progressive people, then once you do something, once you take their advice, and do something stupid that turns off the entire population previously interested in your art, then you only have them to rely on. And this is what happened with Monika Strzępka. So she becomes, after a long period of hard work, she is, as a theater director, she becomes the manager of one of the most important, most prestigious theaters in Warsaw, which is located in the very, very central spot in the Palace of Culture and Science, built by Joe Stalin, by the way, in the 50s. And it's there, she takes over, and she's immediately, because she's got this fame of being progressive and things like that, and she even announced in the beginning that she wants to have a new model of cooperation with the staff, with the actors, and so on and so forth. And that sounded pretty well, because everybody still, including myself, considered her to be a rational person and she'd know what she'd be doing. But obviously this was a little too much for her, because she has never been a manager, so she encountered problems that she had never had before. And at the same time, this wokey crowd, this caricature of wokeness, the Polish cheap copy of this nonsense, it was exerting so much pressure on her that, in order, and this is my guess, I don't know, okay, but I think in order to appease them, to, get them off her head, she agreed to one of their postulates. Now, again, I don't know whether that was something that they demanded of her, or whether she thought that this is the way to sort of deal with those people. But she allowed a huge, allegedly autistic installation of a female reproductive organ, a huge female reproductive organ covered in golden color, to be put in the foyer, in the waiting room, so to say, of the theater. And if there's a way for you to explain to me where is the progressivism in it, or how is it political, what do you achieve by this kind of acts, I have no idea. I don't believe you can give me any rational argument in favor of doing that. And of course, it had to do what it had to do. Logically, it just enraged a lot of people, because, theater is theater. This is not your, sex shop. This is a theater. This requires different symbolism. This requires, different approach. This requires different levels of seriousness and attitude and everything. And this has no place there. And, for me, I don't care. I mean, I can walk around, steal golden vaginas and stuff like that. Okay. But for most people, it's not comfortable. And it wouldn't have been comfortable probably even in the West. But okay, maybe somewhere in the West that would be more acceptable. Not in Poland. Not in a country that is profoundly Catholic, that is, conservative on its face. This makes no sense, okay? And the theater is supposed to be for everyone, for conservatives, for patriots, for nationalists, but also for socialists, communists, progressives, and liberal Democrats, if you like, okay? So you cannot just do that. And she went ahead and did this, and of course, what I described what I described previously had to happen. Everybody was against her, and only the people, this crazy, really crazy. I mean, I know some of them, okay, from past experience. I've dealt with them, and I know they're really crazy. So she only had them to rely on, and they were applauding her. And when you find yourself in a situation like that everybody is against you, you consider yourself to be a counterculture progressive theater director, and then you get this wokey, strange crowd applauding you, then you think, this is just human condition, this is human nature. You kind of tend to stick with those where you can get some support. And of course, they were influencing her even further. And we don't have time to go over the whole of it. But now the situation is that actors and staff, technical staff and other people from the theater are massively quitting. And a friend of mine, Krystyna Romanowska, a great Polish journalist, she's written a reportage about it and published it on a big, major Polish media outlet, electronic media outlet called Onet. And this is a devastating picture of a fallen angel. Like, someone who really had this potential, which is now being wasted. And I don't believe it can ever be restored. Maybe in some exceptional circumstances. But at the moment, what Strzępka is doing is just ridiculous. And let me just say this. the more the situation was getting, the more dense, the more tense the situation was getting, the more crazy the ideas were for solving the problems. And of course, everything ended up in a very wokey way. And it, in the beginning of the article of the reportage, you can see how one of the actors is quitting and describing the situation in her office, which she called apparently a vagina office. I mean, really, I'm not making it up. She really called it that way. Her office, would be the vagina office. In Polish, that they would put two words, office and vagina in Polish, and they would create the word vaginet, and this is how she referred to her own office.
It's very difficult to follow with a straight face. I mean,
that's exactly but you see how quickly they can really destroy your psyche. So this actor, she went into this vaginet. Okay, she went there to her room, to her office, to basically hand the documents for. When she describes the situation, and she says that there are mugs with coffee and tea on a filthy table, tobacco spilled all over the place, joints, cigarette butts, everything covered with 1 centimeter of dust, like complete chaos, documents in chaos, everything in chaos basically. And she just had to, she was able to barely make her way through all the items and leftovers of whatever was happening in this place. And I have the feeling that was really sad, because when I started reading it, I thought to myself, wow, this is the new version of socialism for the modern left. This is what they feel like, we're all going to have, we have no obligations. There will be no order. We're just going to do whatever we like. We're not going to clean. We're not going to have proper working hours. There's going to be no discipline of everyday life whatsoever. Everybody's just going to have fun, and we're just going to wait for, the coffee mugs, the dirty dishes or whatever is there to disappear magically. And if it doesn't disappear, then we're going to blame the oppressive society for this. So this is pretty much the essence of the whole thing. And then, the more conflicts were arousing with the people in the theater, she would, instead of solving those problems by having a normal discussion based on materialist points of reference and points of view, then she would actually take the actors to have yoga classes, morning yoga classes, so that everybody really gets more relieved and is not stressed so much. And then it turned out that actually those yoga classes were organized on Monday and Tuesday when it's actors' free days. So they had to go to work basically every day, either for acting or for repetitions or for having these yoga classes. Then when yoga classes didn't help, she would literally require the actors to hang around the theater in the evenings and douse the theater with white sage and other herbs, that would be burning in a small pot.
This is what Orthodox priests do in Romania, when they want to chase away the devil, they go around the place with some sort of... Completely ridiculous thing. And then she would take people to collect mushrooms. And of course you have to do that very early in the morning, so not many people would come and things. Then, when this didn't work, she would take them to the woods and require that the actors and other staff members would hug trees, or, I don't know, roll in the leaves, or I really have no words. I mean, this is the levels of craze that you can get into when you deal with this. A friend of mine here in Poland, a former member of the left party here, Razem, we spoke about them many times. She calls them the regressive left. Not the progressive left, but the regressive left. Like, this is how you regress into some kind of, medieval or ancient beliefs that, the trees are going to give you, health and reduce your stress. Not the material conditions, not solving problems, but you're going to hug trees, or you're going to, sniff on white sage or what. Like, I feel sad. I mean, it's comical, but I really feel sad discussing it. And I feel devastated that in the center of this madness we have a person that's got such a great record. That's so unfortunate. I recommend to our viewers to watch the third part of a world acclaimed documentary. It's called The Century of the Self. It was produced by Adam Curtis. Adam Curtis, a renowned BBC journalist. And in this third part, he discusses exactly what I told it. There are so many things, that it's just like I'm watching that documentary again when you're talking about this, how the failed political project encourage people to go into this quasi psychological pseudo therapeutical things where they would try to change the organization, the society, by changing themselves, by becoming themselves zen, by becoming themselves with an aura, clean karma, and all this BS that's coming out of it, and this self-help industry that it's built also upon these ideas that you don't have to change society. No. You have the material conditions. No, you change yourself. And this is what goes for the left today, which I think is extremely unfortunate and detrimental.
Yeah.
Well, this is the situation. Thank you so much, Boyan, for sharing all these thoughts with us. I think they are invaluable. And to the viewers, if you like what you saw, patreon.com/the barricade is the place where you can find us and support us. We really need your support because during these crazy times, it's very difficult for us to find financial support as the usual NGOs do, since we are so independent and so against the whole system and the status quo. Thank you so much,
All right.
Boyan, to our
Thanks.
viewers.
Thanks.
See you all in the next segment of our show.